Hello viewers, well, I'm joined here today by Andrew Graham, the gameplay guru here at Qawali. So Andrew, I'd like to take me back to the beginning of your career. How did you get in video games? What inspired you? Where did it all kick off?
When I was at school, when I was a kid, I just used to tinker around with electronics and stuff, and then eventually I got a ZX81, and I used to do games on that because I would play like arcade games and want to play them at home, but they just simply weren't available. So you were kind of forced to write your own games. So that's how I got started. But then I got a Commodore 64 and it got more sensible. And I did a game called Heebie-Jeebies for Software Project.
So you made a couple of Commodore titles. We'll have a little research into a little list of those, actually dig them out. But the main one that we're talking about today is Micro Machines. Talk to me about the development process behind that. You're given a brief, developing it, and the formats that you took it onto.
I'd been writing a few games for Codemasters, like doing a few conversions and stuff on the Commodore 64, and then one year Dave Darling got in touch with me and said that they had this exciting project where they were going to be doing games for the Nintendo NES. And to be honest, I hadn't even heard of it at the time because it was like big in America, but not so big over here. But anyway, he kind of persuaded me to take a year out of university, which was kind of crazy. But I did that and came down to Leamington and ended up doing a conversion of Dizzy, Treasure Island Dizzy, for the NES. And then after I'd done that, I started working on Micro Machines, and I didn't quite have time to finish Micro Machines 1 before I had to go back to university to finish my 4th year. And then I came back and I was doing a pinball game, Psycho Pinball. And during that time, it was decided that they were going to do Micro Machines 2, and so that was passed on to somebody else to take care of.
But then they gave you the baton back then in Micro Machines V3 on the PS1.
Yeah, that was brilliant because I was really glad to be doing Micro Machines again, and I was so glad to be working on the PlayStation because I mean it was just so awesome at the time. I mean it was just a huge leap over what went before, and just being able to mess around with stuff like that in 3D and be able to do that kind of game which you would never really consider. There was nothing like that had been done with 3D hardware before because previously, if you had like arcade games that had that were in 3D, they would generally be kind of driving games or flying games or get into the screen games, and so to kind of like squander that kind of 3D technology on an overhead racing game wouldn't be something that you would consider. But I thought it worked. It worked quite well.
I remember it was very 60 frames, wasn't it, at the time? Wasn't it? It was sort of pushing graphically.
Yeah, most of the levels we managed to get in 60 frames, which I thought was
tremendous at the time.
It was a lot nicer because you didn't get a kind of there was a blurring effect if it dropped to 30 frames.
I have to admit, I did find the game quite difficult and occasionally quite frustrating. I got angry with it on more than a few occasions, but it was good fun actually. I did enjoy it, and I thought that it took it forward really well. It was a great seller though, wasn't it? It just kept on going and going.
Yeah, it was good, and we did versions for America and Japan. We had to localize all the text to Japanese kanji text for Japan, and then we eventually did a arcade version for Namco.
I was asking about that. Yeah, Micro Machines in the arcade. Never seen it. Was it identical to the PS1 version, or was it sort of ramped up using their own hardware at the time?
Well, it was like at the time they had arcade hardware based on the PlayStation. It was System 32 or something. I can't remember. But I think basically it had more RAM and it was a slightly faster GPU. And yeah, so it was based on the PlayStation version. But after we'd done the first version for them, they said, oh, all this stop and start business, like we get to the edge of the screen and reset. That they didn't want that. It needed to be continuous. It needed to be kind of ongoing gameplay. So we changed it like that, and I think it kind of killed the fun. I think the whole thing about Micro Machines is it has to stop and reset, and you need to punctuate the gameplay so that like everybody can kind of catch a breath, and then off we go again. And so I had this kind of thing where you hit the edge of the screen, and they blew up and then reappeared, and it was. it didn't stop; it just kept going, and I think it lost something. Yeah.
When you talk about it, I get this vision. There was an off-road racing game that was an arcade game. That was a table with 4 steering wheels and 4 sets of pedals where you drive it. I have an idea that Micro Machines with 4 wheels like that around a table would have been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
How was the machine set up? Because I can find nothing online. There's nothing on the internet.
It was just they sent us one of their big arcade machines with Tekken 3 in it, and I think it had 3 joysticks on it. I think it had 3 joysticks on it. It was, we just plugged into that and uploaded the code. So I think that would be how it would be presented in the arcade, with maximum 3 players. And they put it into some arcade in Japan to test to see how it went down with the public, and it didn't do that well, so that was the end of that.
よーいスタート。フレームアウトで即アウト。ポイント制生き残り型レーシングゲーム。プレイステーションなんとマイクロマシーンズ。やったー。あら。
So that was into Micro Machines. I mean, a great franchise that could have gone on and on and on. Then it just kind of vanished, and we've never seen another Micro Machines game after that. But we did have Micro Maniacs. So tell me about the change over to Micro Maniacs.
So we had a meeting, and we were discussing like what we were going to do next. And one of the things about Micro Machines is that like basically it's based on these toys, Micro Machines, which are available in America, or I don't know if I think they are still available. But we always had to pay the manufacturers of that toy a royalty, and it was quite a large royalty, and which was kind of irksome, given that I don't think that they were never really that popular in the territories that the game was popular in, so we weren't really benefiting from the kind of their brand. So we thought about kind of doing a different game but based on the same gameplay. I think in retrospect it was a mistake. We should have stuck with the Micro Machines brand because that's what people were familiar with, and I think with cars it would have been, I think the running thing was nice. I thought it would be cool to add a little bit of characterization, to have little different characters, and I think we did have nice characters. The artist on that project was a guy called Marcus Keeley, I think, and he was awesome. The characters he came up for that were brilliant, and but sadly it's just not as much fun to drive little running characters as it is to drive cars. The best bits I think in that game were when they actually got into vehicles. Like you would hit a power up and they would all suddenly be in tanks and driving around in tanks, and I think that was if we were to do a sequel, I would have like 60-70% them in cars, and and 30% them just running.
When your mates are out to get you, there's only one thing to do. Run! Micromaniacs. 8 players, 1 winner. Codemasters.
So you took a complete change in direction then. Dragon Empires MMO, completely different from simple arcade game that you can get into and get out of in 1 minute to something that takes years of your life.
Yeah, I'd been a designer for a couple of years. My programming skills were getting a little bit rusty, so I joined that team to kind of brush up on my C++, to be honest. And it's not my type of game. I don't really play massively multiplayer games at all, but it was interesting.
Let's talk about Qawali now. Joining Qawali, what's your first sort of target of what you're attempting to achieve here?
Well, to create lots of fun games, I guess, because maybe David's talked about it already, but it's like going back to the old days where we can create games much more quickly, and we can focus on the fun and the gameplay, because that's really what people are interested in. When you only have 15 minutes to play a game, you have to really grab them with the gameplay rather than kind of like draw them into some fantasy world that like the big budget games are doing. So that's really exciting for me, and this is an exciting business to be in.
Is there anything you can give away at the moment? Any of the future titles that you're working on? Any information telling people about Kwalee and what you're going to be working on?
I don't think so. Sorry.
Going to be secret at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, we'll check out your first game anyway, and no doubt we'll link to that in a little review as well. And Andrew, thank you very much for sparing the time today.
No problems.